Hello everybody. I'd like to share a few words for the language warriors out there who are trying to get things going to preserve and revitalize their indigenous languages. This is hard work. It is heroic work, and there's nothing like a dialect war to completely derail an emerging language revitalization effort. For many of the big language groups, this has happened for us with Ojibwe, but it's the case with Ottawa, with Potawatomi. It's also the case with many of the Salish languages, with Blackfeet, and so forth. You will have not one monolithic language, but you really have a collection of interrelated dialect groupings. And they're all valid and they're all beautiful. Unfortunately, though, when a community wants to get real about language revitalization, often, although there's lots of talent in all of the different communities, sometimes a little more concentrated one place than another, at the same time that we're all brothers and sisters and connected to one another, each community wants its own local dialect to thrive and be at the center of the community revitalization effort. And especially if the effort includes trying to get tribal governments to offer financial support for an effort, they will want their own local dialect centered. However, especially when there's been some significant language loss, you often have a small number of speakers from each of the communities trying to get things done. Although you could pool all the talent and you have a lot more people to work with, the language dialect wars start to emerge. And a couple of things to bear in mind. First of all, we don't have to fight over whose dialect is correct. They're all right. And I think as long as we understand, support, and validate that, it's an important beginning place for the conversations. In addition to that, when, let's say, we're going to develop a dictionary or even do lexical expansion work, in other words, identify new words for new technologies and new concepts. So you need words in your language for things like, algebraic formulas, what's a quotient, Bill of Rights, Constitution, and things like that. So what sometimes people are worried about is if we get a bunch of people from different communities together, someone is going to pick the one correct, true word to go in that dictionary. But it doesn't have to be that way. We've often done work with as many as 9 different dialects represented in the huddle. And when we did, we wouldn't pick whose word is right. If all of the speakers agreed across all dialects, this will be the word, awesome. But if they couldn't agree and somebody's like, well, this is what we'd say where I'm from, and someone else would say, well, this is what we say where I'm from, then we'd say, you're all right, we're going to put all the versions in there, and we would just code the entry by the speaker and the community that they were from. And so as a result, we were able to, do work that would support all of the dialects, not have to pick who's the winner and who's the loser in some sort of dialect war, and then have people feel welcome and included and excited to support one another, learn from one another, knowing that nobody's going to tell them they're doing it wrong or that their word is not the right word. And so that has helped us get over some of those dialect wars in the development of tools and materials. It can still be a challenge when you're trying to figure out who can we hire to staff the new immersion school program, curriculum development job, or what have you. And you may get people from different communities who apply for those jobs. So here too, I think really what we're running into is a fear of scarcity. It taps on and triggers our fears about erasure and invalidation. And so, here too, I don't know, if I wanted my kid to learn English and my English teacher came from New Zealand, I wouldn't say, I'm not going to let that person teach my kid because they're not going to sound like they're from Minnesota. I would say, hey, it will be cool if they learn from somebody from New Zealand, England, Australia, wherever. And we're going to make sure that they have a lot of exposure to a lot of people from different dialects of English. And so this has kind of been a view that we've adopted with a lot of our language program hires and things like that too, is that we can't spend our time trying to suppress other speakers from other communities. It's better to hold all of them up. And when everybody's treated right and well and respectfully, then they have a lot to contribute. And if they want to spend their time and efforts and energy in your community, that's a really big blessing and a sacrifice really for them, because most of us want to be at the service of our own communities of origin. And so, you know, we have often hired people from many different dialects to populate teaching positions in a variety of programs, and we honor the local dialect at the same time that people bring and share what they know. And it does not mess the kids up, and it does not marginalize the existing speakers. Honestly, we need one another. And I think this applies to just about all of our efforts. Remember that if we're busy spending our time and energy fighting one another, then that's all that's necessary for our languages to die. And in fact, when natives fight natives, white supremacy wins and the English language dominates. Time to put the dialect wars to rest, work together, and get something done. Miigwech.